What's going on, y'all? AU and Biggs, aka Andrew. Back at y'all with another top 10 video. Got y'all with a treat today. Top 10 shooting guards currently heading into the 2022-2023 NBA season. Um, this one wasn't as hard to make, but in the middle of the list was really kind of challenging because certain players have good aspects that I felt made them better than certain other players. So, any opinions, any disagreements, feel free to comment in the comment section, and I'm all up for a good debate, and I'll make sure because last time with the other video in the top 10 point guards, I forgot to do it, but I'm actually gonna do some honorable mentions for this vid. Um, for players that didn't make the list, but players that I feel can eventually make the list. So yeah, let's get right into it, and top 10 shooting guards. Let's go. All right, at the 10th spot, starting off the list, we got Anthony Edwards, easily one of the best young upcoming guards starting off this list. Um, Last season he averaged 21.3 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, 3.8 assists. He shot 44% from the field, 35% from three, and 78% from the free throw line. I have him starting off the list because he is clearly the future of the two guard for the league going forward. And I think in coming into your third season, him being a number one overall pick when he got drafted, coming into your second season, being the 10th best two in the best league in basketball is not such a bad title. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I have him. Some people might think he's pretty low. I think it's him going up because you're not calling him a top 10 two guard last season. But I think after what he's shown throughout the season last year and how he came into the playoffs, and even though he did make certain mistakes that I'm going to talk about later, um, I think he still earned the respect of like a lot of other players, and I think he's only going to get better this season. There's a lot of things that I like about his game. He was able to increase his scoring load from 19 points to obviously 21.3. Two it might be not that much from the eye, but two points, 21 points a game is a lot, especially considering like how he was used throughout the season for that team. Um, he was able to improve a lot in closing out games for them in certain situations offensively. He's obviously their next cornerstone alongside Karl Anthony Towns, so he's clearly their future. And if not already, he's their franchise player. I also think Cat is their franchise guy, but I think it's obvious that like he's in that discussion to be like their cornerstone, the person they're going to build around for like years to come. So his scoring load is only going to get better. I really want his passing ability to increase. I really want him to try to get other players involved. I want him to be able to stop taking a bunch of contested shots when they're down, like say 5 points, 4 points, under like 2 minutes left on the clock. I think he takes too many contested jumpers when they might be down when they're down in the game. And I feel like he did that a lot in the postseason. Even though some of those shots I would admit were pretty clutch. There were a amount of times where he took them and it was like he could have had an easier play. There was times he missed Cat wide open. Hence the reason he needs to improve his playmaking. I think he needs to stop taking so many jump shots sometimes and try to use his size and body. He played football. Like try to use that size. Get take some of these smaller guards to the paint. Try to get some content. Get these big men on the opposite side of foul trouble. Get to the line, and hence why I think he also needs to improve his free throw percentage because 78% is not really gonna cut it, especially if you're trying to be a number one option, which I think eventually he will be, and I think eventually that shit will improve. Uh, that's the only real issues I have with him. He's a good defender, and I think he's a decent defender, well-rounded defender. But I think he has a habit of going for too many lane steals. Hence the plays that he did in the playoffs, where there'll be times he'll go for unnecessary ones, which will lead to defensive breakdowns and leading to other teammates getting in foul trouble because they will have to come and help. So I think he needs to be able to just stay his ground, use his size, stay in front of them, make it difficult for other players. Don't hesitate too much on certain plays defensively, and just keep his feet planted. I expect this season for him to excel. I expect this season for him to be an all star. That's the kind of step I'm expecting him to take. If he doesn't necessarily have to improve his playmaking, he has to increase his scoring load. So he needs to go from 21.3 points a game to at least 24, 25. Like I need a massive jump in terms of point production from him in order for me to move him up on this list. Because I already got him 10th. That's pretty good in your coming into your third year in the league. So yeah, Anthony Edwards at 10th, and let's move on to number 9. Okay. At number 9, we got Shai Gilgeous Alexander. Now, depending on where you view him in terms of position, I view him as a two guard that can play the point. If you might have a problem with a lot of that shit on this list, or a lot of the other lists, bro. If I view him as a two, he's a two. If I view him as a one, he's a one. If I view him as a three, he's a three. I view him as a two. I'm gonna keep him as a two. He can play the point, obviously. If he's need to do that significantly, he'll do that, and then maybe I consider moving him at the point guard spot. He plays with Giddy. Giddy runs their point guard spot. I'm keeping him at the two. That's him. All right. Last season, Shai averaged 24.5 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, and 5.9 assists, basically 6 assists per game. 45% from the field, 81% from the free throw line, and 30% from the 3 point percentage. I think that needs to improve a lot. He's 5% below average. I do think it was just a shaky year for him because we know Shy can shoot, but still like he needs to improve that joint. His talent alone, obviously the stats he has, it's hard for me to put him below Anthony Edwards. But then again, they don't win anything, so sometimes it does feel like dead stats. But you can't deny the talent and the offensive, to an extent, consistency that he puts out. Um, he does have more winning experience ahead of Anthony Edwards because he's been in the playoffs more than him. He has shown an ability to lead his team along with other great players such as CP3. Um, He has the ability to do everything from scoring, defend, and facilitate if need be, and also a capable rebounder. Is without a doubt the best player on his squad, and as of right now, can be a franchise cornerstone. And I see MVP votes in his future. I don't want to say MVPs, but I can definitely see MVP votes, especially if he's playing on a good team. And if he's playing on a good team, putting up these stats, there's no way you can deny him at least some votes going forward in his future. There are some cons that I have with him. Even though he has some winning experience, he's only been in the playoffs. He's only been in two playoff series, which he hasn't won, and was never the best player on his team. At those times, doesn't really have a consistent 3 point shot, and has a habit of disappearing throughout a game and trying to heat up when the game is getting or is already out of reach. In fairness to him, his team is young and currently tanking, but there's enough talent on that roster for them to not be a cakewalk when teams visit them, or vice versa. But to be fair, there were times throughout the season where I did see like a lot of guys like step up in some situations, and that's why I wish he would like really lead them a lot more because they are young, they are creative, they have a lot of energy. I do think OKC is obviously tanking. Look, I don't expect these guys to be good at all this season, but I really believe this guy is completely capable if he wanted to make this team annoying for good teams trying to get good playoff positioning because he's such a good player. He can defend, he can pass. I believe he's a way better 3 point percent shooter than he's shown last season. Um, I believe like going forward, he will go up on this list simply because certain guys are gonna die down. Certain guys aren't gonna be as skilled as anymore going forward. I think he's going to excel as a player. I expect future All Star selections for him. He's a really good player, and I do want him, even though he does have 6 assists. I want it to be higher. I see a potential of 8, 9, possibly 10 assists from this guy at the two guard spot, and then y'all could be like, oh, well, he's averaging so much assists. Why do you have him as a shooting guard? I have him as shooting guard because he's a shooting guard. That's why I have him as a shooting guard. Um, but he's still a solid playmaker. He doesn't necessarily need to improve that, but I want high jumps from that. I do want more rebounds. I want him to be one of the best two-way players in the league. I see a Paul George level caliber player here. That's what I'm saying. Like I want someone to be one of those guys where it's like, do you consider Shy an MVP caliber guy? Because I think he can definitely do that. And being one of the ninth best two guys in the league is nothing to sniff at. So obviously Chet's hurt. The team's still very young. They're obviously tanking because everyone wants Wobanyama coming out of the draft next year. So I don't expect him to be too great, but I do want to see improvements in terms of his shooting percentage, and I want him to see him average more assists, and that he may even go up because of that. Because I know once they really start to care about winning the franchise, then I expect people to really be like, Shai is really one of those guys that we should be talking about him top five, top six in the league in terms of being at the two guard spot. So yeah, Shy at number 9, and let's move on to number 8. All right, all right. At number 8, we have Klay Thompson. Hey, Warrior fans, calm the fuck down. All right, calm the fuck down, Nettie. All right, look. Last season, Klay averaged 20.4 points per game, 3.9 rebounds, and 2.8 assists. He shot 42% from the field, 38% from three, and 90% from the free throw line. Now, obviously, the only reason I have Klay so low, I only put him this low because of the injury he received, which led to him having to get back into rhythm. This past season when healthy, he's a any past season when he's healthy, he's clearly a top 3, top 4 shooting guard in the league. Some might have him two, yeah, top 3, top 4. In my opinion, of course. In the NBA, he has amazing shot accuracy. He's an amazing two-way player, and is arguably one of the best clutch players in the last decade. Um, he does have some cons, but it's not really cons because we know what Clay gives. He's an amazing three-point shooter. He can defend. When need be, he can make the extra pass to help out his team. Um, to me, to an extent, an underrated key rebounder in certain situations. A tall guard. He doesn't really have cons because he does what he's supposed to do. He's a two guard that can space the floor for the team that he's assigned upon. So I don't really view cons for the guy. He does his job. Even though the last two injuries are uncharacteristic and freak accidents, he must prioritize staying healthy and keep improving his conditioning. Maybe put on some more muscle. Has to be able to get his defensive intensity back and his amazing scoring capabilities in order for the Warriors to repeat and move higher up on the list. But we all know what Clay does. He's only down this low simply because he's hurt. It wouldn't be fair to the guys that have been playing well since he's been gone. It wouldn't be fair to just have them as low as they are, even though he hasn't really shown much since he's like obviously been hurt. In all fairness to him, he has been hurt. So if he comes out and does what he's supposed to do as Klay Thompson, the second best player on that Warriors team, the second cornerstone of that franchise, one of the highest paid players in the league, yeah, easily moves back up to 3, 4, like as simple as that for me. And yeah, number 8, and it's Clay. Again, calm down, Nettie. All right, now we're getting to the part where the list kind of gets interesting, and this is the part where I said that I think it gets a little hard for me to start kind of ranking some of these two guards because just a few years ago, the two guard position wasn't really that great. If you really think about it, you would be like, is this before really the Suns kind of started winning games? Because if you really thought about it, they would be like, oh, James Harden's number 1, clear cut. They would go Clay, and then depending on if you had Jimmy, you might throw Jimmy in there. But if you don't, you probably be like, oh, Zach Levine's in there because Zach Levine's so talented. He's such an amazing offensive weapon. But the guy doesn't win anything. And I really did feel like a lot of his stuff was kind of dead points. But in fairness to him, the Bulls haven't been the best franchise. But I do feel like a guy this talented should be able to help and at least make you sneak in since he's that good of a player and he's clearly an all star. Um, he's one of the most consistent and efficient scorers in the East and has the potential to make his scoring. He has the potential to make his scoring the leading factor for a championship team. That's how amazing I think he is as an offensive option. Um, is unbelievably athletic and has good handles. He has good handles to slow down the defense, get to his spots wherever he wants to get in terms of his mid range ability, his ability to step back, get his step back threes going, pull up jumpers. The guy has a complete offensive package. Um, I have cons for him. There are a lot. And I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him. That's why I have him kind of low. And another person I have ahead, I feel like a casual would like. I don't want to say anyone's a casual, but I feel like if you don't really watch the game or appreciate the game, you won't understand why I have number 6 as high as I do. A lot of people might think I have him too high, and especially ahead of him. But I'll get into that obviously when I get there. Um, Zach Levine, he doesn't know exactly when to make his scoring have meaning. And yeah, you can pull up a bunch of clips off of YouTube, like, oh, well, he dropped this game winner, or he had these points here. How about the other 100 plus games he's played where he's literally just scored like 30 points and then nothing really in the fourth quarter? Or like he'll have like 45 points. Oh my gosh, he did this. But then the last 2 minutes of a game, he didn't really score anything. He was missing a bunch of contested shots. He wasn't shooting. That's usually what he did. He scored a bunch of points, and then he would usually just get drowsy throughout the game and just kind of stop. Um, and that's why his points gonna end up as dead points. I mean, his points mean nothing to defensive schemes. I mean, they know coming in here, yeah, he's a really good player, and yeah, like he can score, but like he's not really gonna terrify our defense like that. Um, as a taller guard, he should be able to see over defenses, which should help him be able to find more open guys. And yeah, he does have 4.5 assists, but that's like, come on. He as a guy his height, with his handle, with his ability to space the floor, in terms of his ability to shoot, he should be able to at least have 6, 7 assists, bro. Especially in today's game where a lot of the top guys are having a lot more higher assists, he should be able to get those type of buckets for his other teammates because he's so tall at the two guard position. Um, even though and I understand, even though he has a solid point guard in Lonzo and stuff like that, and he has Kobe White that comes off the bench, but one, Lonzo's always hurt. I think Lonzo's a very underrated playmaker, and that takes off a lot of the attention in terms of Zach having to necessarily find other people. But Lonzo's very injury prone, and Kobe White's just too inconsistent. He needs to find a way to step up and try to lead his team in terms of playmaking more because he can already score. And I think 4.6 rebounds at his height is still decent. It's about 5 boards a game. Um, he's still a good enough player on the offensive end that he should try to focus on his ability to find other guys inside, find other guys around the perimeter, and not just only focus on trying to score. He has DeMar DeRozan with him now, so he doesn't necessarily have to only focus on that. He has Vucevic down at the 5, so he doesn't have to necessarily only focus on scoring the basket. You can say, well, he has those guys. Well, he should focus on doing that. No, Zach is very young, their young cornerstone. He is arguably their franchise. And if you say DeRozan, then the Bulls aren't going nowhere. Because I understand that, yeah, he came in last season, he did great for them, and he even has some MVP votes. But if you think about it, they brought him there to help Zach become better. If Zach doesn't improve as a player, they're going to be stuck where they are. They have one of the best starting fives in basketball when fully healthy, and one of the best benches in basketball if fully healthy. He needs to improve as a player in order for these guys to be serious contenders. I believe if he improves, his scoring load could be enough to help you win a title. That's how amazing of a basketball player he is offensively, and improving defensively and improving his playmaking will make them ascend. He's in a position where he has to improve that, where he has to improve his playmaking. Not a position where, oh well, everyone else around him can do their thing. No, he has to improve that. Because yeah, Lonzo's a good playmaker, but he's not a threat like that offensively. The guy got a 30 piece and he brags about it. No one brags when they get a 30 piece in the NBA today. Except for niggas like Lonzo Ball. You see what I'm saying? Lonzo will have 10, 10, and 10, which is still pretty good. But at the point guard position, bro, you still gotta be able to put fear in offense. And Lonzo doesn't really do that. Lonzo getting 15 to 20 points for you is a benefit. Zach Levine getting 30 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists is decent. I expect more assists. I expect more rebounds. I expect him to become better. So when he makes it to the playoffs, he's not so and also when he does this, it takes a lot of energy off of him in terms of fatigue and getting hurt and stuff like that because he's not focusing on just attacking the basket all the time, trying to take unnecessary jump shots all the time, and defense throwing a bunch of guys at him all the single time because they think he's always going to try to score. So it makes it easier actually to stop him, especially in the playoffs. You saw he showed literally nothing. And I don't want to hear that it's his first playoff series because if we look at Devin Booker, he did pretty fine his first playoff series. So that's why I have him. I don't think it's low. I still think it's respectable. And he could obviously go up because his talent is literally undeniable. But I got him at the 7th spot. So, yeah, bite me. Okay. So at number 6, we have CJ McCollum. Yes, I have McCollum at 6 ahead of Zach Levine, okay, and ahead of Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is all. I already explained the Klay Thompson thing, so I'm not gonna get into that. But I already have. Yes, I have him 6. That might be high to some people, and I have him as a 2 guard. I know he might play the point for them, but I don't view him as a point guard. I view him as a very, 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 very multi skillful two that can do multiple things for you at a decent level to the point where you can win consistently with him. I think he's the most underrated player ever in this in the modern decade. I truly believe that. especially considering he's never won an all. He's never been in an All Star game, not once. It's literally blasphemy. Um, some may think I have him too high on this list, but I think he's proved that he's better than Zach Levine to me. I have him higher simply because, yeah, obviously in terms of talent, Zach CJ McCollum's probably not even top 14 in terms of two guards. Fuck no, he's not even top 6 in terms of talent. But his ability to work hard and do everything at a decent level enough for you to stay afloat in games and win. Like there's nothing else that you can really like point out that he doesn't do well on the court. Like even last season, he averaged way better stats than Zach Levine. Well, not way better significantly, but he averaged 2.1 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 5.3 assists. He shot 49% from the field, 38% from three. He did not shoot that well from the free throw line, but he's going to shoot better this season. I know he is. He's going to shoot better. And he was hurt to start the season off. And he didn't even know where he was going to play because he knew he was probably going to get traded because he just wasn't working out in Pearly anymore. And he ended up coming to a Pelicans team that none of us thought was going to go anywhere, do anything, considering that Zion Williamson wasn't there. Zion left to go to Chicago, and it was basically just Brandon Ingram and Valanciunas just scoring. Um, there wasn't much to go off of. But he came in there and led that offense literally perfectly to me. And he gave the Suns a pretty good scare. Even though they didn't have Devin Booker for the beginning of that series, he literally showed that he can lead this offense. And I expect him to have a full season, adding Zion there with Brandon Ingram and Valanciunas there. I expect all these guys to just excel alongside each other. And I expect CJ to easily have way more than 5 or 3 assists going into next season. I think it's going to be a huge year for him. I think he might even make an All Star game because of it. I think people are really going to witness how great of a player he is. I think the only thing on the thing, I think the only thing that he does that's not completely elite, not elite. He doesn't do everything elite. He does everything to a good enough level to win. But I think the only thing that he doesn't do well enough is play good enough defense. I think he needs to improve in that. But I think CJ is as good as he is. I don't really see CJ getting better. That's really his con is that he's as good as he is now, and he'll always be as good as he is now. I don't see him excelling that much as a player in terms of his scoring. I think his scoring will stay the same. It might even drop because he might want to get more people involved. I think his rebounds will stay the same. I think his shooting may drop. 30% is pretty high. Um, he didn't play that much games. He's gonna play more, so that might drop. I think it may be 36%, maybe 37. Free throw percentage will go up because he's a good free throw shooter, and he's a very clutch player too. He did seal some games that he was important, and people mismind that because he was playing with one of the most clutchest players ever in Damian Lillard. But he definitely did close out a lot of games for those guys, and people just didn't notice it. Had a lot of clutch playmaking scenarios in a lot of series, especially against OKC where they ended that franchise. Um, if I sound a little biased, I'm not gonna lie, I really do like CJ. Um, he's amazing. I think he's an amazing mid range shooter. That's probably the only thing that comes close to being elite for him is his ability to knock down the mid range shot on pull ups and spot ups. It's literally money every single time. Um, I expect him to keep excel. I expect him to excel in terms of being a leader for them. That's what I expect him to grow because this is really the chance for him to lead them to the point where he's in a way kind of in charge of their offense in terms of getting everyone involved, making everyone understand their roles and stuff like that. And he's only going to make Zion better because he's more skilled than Lonzo Ball. This is probably the best guy running the guard position for Zion his entire career. Obviously, it hasn't been long, but this is what you need. You need a guy that knows what he's doing at all times. Has been through multiple stuff. He's been through a conference finals. He's won playoff series. You know what I'm saying? He's played along a guy has had MVP votes. He knows what it's like to play playing alongside an all star, a superstar caliber player, and now he has two of them next to him and a really good center at the five in Valanciunas. I expect a huge season from them, and I expect if the points do drop, then that's expected. But I expect the assists to go up. I expect the rebounds to stay where they are, and if the points go up or stay where they are, that's a plus. So yeah, I have him at 6, and he's better than Zach Levine as of right now. I don't give a damn. All right, number 5, we got Bradley Beal. You can make the argument that he's the best offensive player on this list in terms of pure scoring ability. Like if you blink, the guy would drop 50 plus on you. I do think he came a lot more down to earth this season, averaging 23.2 points instead of like 30 something. But he was banged up a bit this season. He did miss a certain amount of games because 30% from three is not Bradley Beal. The league has been pretty banged up these past year and a half. So um I expect him to be really decent this upcoming season. The playmaking he's improved really well at, so I can't even knock him for that. I always thought he needed to be better as a playmaker, but I did think he was kind of finding his rhythm, getting used to giving the guys the ball more and stuff like that. And they were in that situation to get into a playing spot, but not really. The reason I have Bill so high, even though like you'll be like, oh well, the score is not everything. Like you've been saying that, oh well, they score a lot of points, but it'd be dead points. You can make the argument that Bill's had a lot of dead points these past few seasons. Um, Beal though has had literally nothing to play with these past few years in terms of a Zach Levine. He has though, guys like I mean, it's really Zach's the only one that I've said this shit about in terms of having the dead points. But Zach has had people on his team that look decent enough to bring them to a playoff spot, at least a playing. Um, and Bill made the playoffs like at least like 2 years ago with Russell Westbrook as his running mate. So you give him a solid All Star, another solid decent player. Beal can make the playoffs for you. That like, and he's had a good amount of winning in his career. He's made it to the playoffs a couple times with John Wall. They've made it to they haven't they never made it to a conference finals, but they did make it to a second round, and they looked like they had the potential to get to a conference finals. He is a player that can easily be your two. He could be your one if your team is run around his offense. But I don't think he could be your clear cut number one in terms of winning a title. But if you want to make a strong playoff push, I think Bradley Beal could be your best player. It depends on what you surround him with. And I think coming to this season, this is gonna be the best team he's had around him in a very, very long time. So I expect a serious push for a playing spot, possibly even significant wins to even have them secure a playoff spot. But I do think they're going to struggle to start the season. I think Beal's going to be phenomenal, especially if he keeps trying to improve his playmaking ability. Because he can pass, man. He knows how to get people involved, and that's one thing that I had underrated about him going into last season and coming into this season was his playmaking and looking at how he did with it, he did pretty well. The shooting obviously is going to be there. The 3 percentage obviously is going to go up, and he might even jump right back up to four. I had him at four before, but I brought him down to five because the winning wasn't there, and the guy ahead of him has been winning since he came in the league. Hasn't been as great as him in terms of All Star appearances, but I think right now he has an edge over him. Um, but yeah, man. Bradley Beal at five. And I expect a huge jump coming into this season. Not necessarily in scoring because we know he can do that, but I expect more assists. I expect him to be more committed on the defensive end because he really feels that he could win with this team now. I believe that they could win a lot more games in this team and be more competitive. Or there's a chance they may even tank, and if that's the case, then that's gonna be really disappointing because I feel like this team has a lot of potential to be pretty good. Um, or at least decent, about average. But yeah, man, Bradley Beal at number five, and let's go on to number four. All right, at number four, have a guy that a lot of people might think I have too high, and I have him as a two. I don't know where everyone else has him, but I have him as a two guard. Um, 23.6 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists, 47% from the field, 35% from three, 75% from free throw. I have him fourth, and Jalen Brown at four to me makes a lot of sense. It just does. Like he came off a really good season last year. Um, he really helped with Robert Williams and Al Horford and anchoring that defense he had established last season. uh, I think he really showed that he can be a number one guy or a number two guy in that playoff run, and especially running into the Warriors. I mean, it's the Warriors, so yeah, that comes with experience. Can't lie. I think he's gonna keep getting better. I think he's gonna excel. I think he's gonna know that he has that potential to be like a significant All Star player every single year. He's one of the best two way players in the league. He's improved his ability to get open off the dribble. He can hit from anywhere on the perimeter. Can guard anyone from one to three, and some fours on occasion. has the potential to be the best player on the championship team and be a defensive player of the year caliber guy. And if there's one thing he knows how to do that only certain guys can do on this list is win at an elite level every single year. And yeah, you could say that well he was blessed in being drafted into a team with decent players and stuff like that. But I mean, since a lot of those guys have come in and out of Boston, and he's been able to help Tatum stay with Tatum, and any coach he's had, he's been able to win. He's never missed the playoffs once in his entire career. I think that's a huge accomplishment for a guy his age, and I think it's just gonna keep growing. There are some cons that I do have with him. He has a decent handle, but he has good he has good defense, but he has a habit of flopping or trying to take charges here and there, which I think is kind of unnecessary. Um, he does have a good handle, but but sometimes when the game is getting a little too close or situations are getting a little too tight on the offensive end, he has a habit of making his handle become too loose, leading to unnecessary turnovers, and that's really the only kind of cons that I have with him. I mean, if you want to improve his, I mean, also you can talk about his playmaking ability. They have never really had a decent point guard. I think coming to this season, them adding Malcolm Brogdon was literally amazing and huge. But the issue with their coach might affect the way the offense is run immediately because Brogdon's not going to be brought in immediately, helped by his coach to help stabilize that offense to his liking. Um, so I think Jalen Brown really needs to understand that he needs to try to get a lot more guys involved. He definitely can do it, especially throughout that playoff run, and especially in that final series. He showed that he can find open guys, find the open man. But I think he needs to do that a lot more consistently, so that they can have home court advantage a lot higher, have a higher seed coming into next season. And still stay afloat as one of the best teams in the league, one of the best defenses in the league. Um, I expect him to obviously make an All Star game next season. Uh, I expect him to carry a load that he should be able to carry because he's playing alongside Jason Tatum, who I believe has established himself as one of the best players in the league and is an all and is a superstar now. Um, and I don't think Jalen Brown's that far away from talent and basketball IQ from Tatum. I think he can easily reach that level if he wanted to, and I think him improving his playmaking will help him reach that ultimately in the long end. And I eventually expect him to win a title because he's just such an efficient player, a great player. He needs to increase his free throw percentage because that was also something that he was lacking in some aspects of his game, especially along the stretch of a playoff series or a playoff game. Like he had a habit of missing certain free throws in certain clutch situations. Um, but he's a solid guy, a solid player, and I only expect the guy to get better. There's really no going back. He wasn't that decent of a three-point shooter before, but he's excelled. He's a really solid three-point shooter now, so I don't expect that to keep going up. And he's definitely gonna be like right there with Tatum as the best player on that team. So yeah, Jalen Brown at 4, and let's go on to number 3. All right, at the third spot we got Donovan Mitchell, 25.9 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, 5.3 assists. He shot 35% from three, 44% from the field, and 85% from the free throw line. Um, I honestly don't think there's any question that D Mitch is the third best two in the game. Um, Donovan is a franchise player, a majority of NBA teams, in my opinion. He guarantees you a playoff spot. Like that's how good he is. I think he guarantees you a playoff spot. He's a dynamic, crafty, athletic guard with a solid jump shot that stops defenses in their tracks. Um, he's completely underrated. He's a completely underrated defender. Um, he's been a relatively good defender throughout his 5 NBA seasons, and he has all the tools to be exactly that. Like he's a 6'1" guard, but he has an absurd 6'10" wingspan, and if wanted to, he could become a defensive specialist if he was to put in the work. Uh, great mid range player. He mid range shooter. He could pull it from three. Has really good handles. Obviously, like I said, is athletic, can dunk over most centers, most big men can really throw it down on you. Um, has a lot of confidence. He has that dog in him. You know what I'm saying? Um, there are some cons. Um, Going into next season, he's playing with a top 10 point guard next season in Darius Garland. He might not necessarily need to do this, but if they want to do great things in the playoffs, he must tweak his passing just a bit because he obviously can facilitate with 5.3 assists per game. but that really wasn't what he needed to do when he was in Utah. It was just give Donovan Mitchell the ball and get out of the way. Mike Conley was supposed to help with the scoring load, but he wasn't really doing much. The first year he did, but after that, it really resorted back to Mitchell just taking a bunch of shots. Obviously, his scoring is amazing 25.9, basically 26 points a game. That could easily go up. He could easily give you 30 a season. I don't think he really needs to do that playing alongside Garland because Garland could also give you 20 to 24 points a game, maybe 22 points per game. Like, he won't have to go as hard as that with that team. But I think with the roster that they have, just he just needs to pass the ball a little bit more to them and get everyone else involved, and they could easily be in a conference final situation, second round situation. I think I think Darius Garland's the most underrated point guard currently right now on the top 10. I put him in my top 10, my last list. Uh, yeah, I think that he's gonna be just as good as he was last year. This year, I one thing that I do have a problem with is he does disappear sometimes in terms of his mentality in playoff series that he definitely should win. He loses, and he just needs. I don't want. I don't know if it should be. He needs to play harder, play faster, commit more in the defensive end. But there's times where I feel like he needs to learn to put his foot down on niggas' throats to really seal games and really put himself in a position to win. Because there was numerous times that he had the first seed with Utah, the second seed, maybe even the third seed, and they would flake out in the playoffs. You could also blame the coaching staff and how they ran that team, and that he didn't have a really solid other offensive partner next to him. So maybe that does transition differently heading into Cleveland. But that's really all I gotta say for him. But easily to me, the third best two in the game can, if if he wanted to be the best two in the game. Um, that's how high I got Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, I got him at 3, and let's move on to number 2. It should honestly not be any surprise. Now, no, it does. It is a surprise if you view him as a point guard, which I completely understand. But I almost put him at point for my last list, but stop. Two guard. 22 points to 22 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 10.3 assists per game. Um, he led the league in assists last year, if I believe. 41% from the field, 30% from three, terrible. 87% from the free throw line. Now, most players in the NBA, no matter who you are, if you play in the league, the stats that James Harden has in an off year, in a year where he was not 100%, bro, like most players will die for these stats, bro. Even though James Harden had a underwhelming season by his standards, most players would still wish to have his stat line. He also averaged this while being injured. He can shoot from anywhere on the court. He's an amazing playmaker, extremely efficient at getting to the line and creating separation for drives, floaters, and step backs. Easily an MVP player when fully healthy. 30% from the free throw, 33% from the 3 point line. Bro, that's not James Harden, bro. To give him one good season when he's fully healthy. He said he lost 100 pounds coming into this training camp, and I completely believe him. I don't care what anyone tells me. I believe the guy. 87% from the free throw line. That's what he does. He makes his free throws. He's a phenomenal passer. Um, and James doesn't have to improve his stat line. He just has to be more healthier and make better reads down the stretch of the game. He doesn't have to necessarily be their closer anymore in playoff situations, and B can definitely do that. He just has to be able to help him when he needs it in terms of just hit a bucket here and there or be able to pass the ball to an open man here and there for them to hit their shots. That's really all they really need. If James is a little bit more healthier to me, I think that they beat Miami last season. But that's just me. Um, at his absolute best, I still believe that he's the best. He's the best two guard in the league. But to be fair to the other guys, and especially that he's been so underwhelming these past 2 seasons, I have to put him at number 2. I want to put him at number 1, but there's just no way I could put him ahead of the guy that I have ahead of him right now. So, the only con, it's not even a con. Like, all he has to do, bro, is literally just be healthy, be James Harden, but not to the extent that he was the last few years in Houston. Just be healthy and he'll be perfectly fine. James Harden at his absolute best, even though I don't think he'll resort back to being like that because he's playing with an MVP caliber player right now in the future of this franchise, and he understands that like this guy is the franchise of the 76ers and he's the establishment in Joel Embiid. Like he at James Harden at his best is a top 5 player in the game of basketball. Top 5. If you think otherwise, you're insane. So James Harden at 2. Let's move on to number 1. I think as the list is going on, you guys, it was kind of obvious he was either gonna be 1 or 2, but he's definitely one. Uh, Concerning how he played the last 2 seasons, and there's no other two guard that's been better than him in my opinion. Like coming into this season or last year, like 26.8 points per game. It's basically 27 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 46% from the field, 38% from three, 86% from the free throw line. I think it makes the most sense to put Donovan to put Devin at 1. Excuse me, considering he's been an offensive force for the Suns and a very improved defender, which has led to the Suns becoming a contender instead of a laughingstock. His mid range game, he has a mid range game, can finish around the rim, is probably the best mid range shooter on the list, hence the first spot. Is probably the best shooter period on the list, hence the one spot. Would eventually win it. Well, wait, Klay Thompson, but mm, I think he will eventually win an MVP in the near future. In my opinion, he has the intangibles to be a number one at any level. Probably for the next 5 years, he'll be a number one option for any team he has. Um, has really good handle, can get to his spots and can get to his spots, can shoot from the middle over anyone. He's able to change his shot midair anywhere it is and still be able to knock it down. He's a phenomenal 3 point shooter, giving off the catch, off a pull up, off the dribble. Um, can pass, but I really do think he needs to improve that. Um, he has a habit of disappearing during games, especially during important games. There's a lot of times where he just won't be there. And it's not necessarily, I don't want to say it's not his fault, but I don't know. It's just his play style. He disappears sometimes when defenses are too hounded and focused on him. He has to be able to take the pressure off of his teammates like Chris Paul, so that guys like Paul, guys like Mikal Bridges, don't have to do a necessary amount of things. Like I think if anyone on this list needs to improve their playmaking in order to secure themselves a title, it's him. 4.8 assists is not going to cut it as the second primary ball handler and the second primary scorer on your team, especially when you're trying to compete for a championship. Chris Paul should not have to bear every single thing down the court in terms of handling the ball for them to get their offense going. He has to be able to increase his playmaking in order for that team to win a title, especially considering that he's playing with a seriously skilled big man that does not receive the ball a lot in the offense. He has to be able to make him get the ball in that offense. Um, there's nothing really else wrong with how he plays. He's a really good defender. I do think he can get better at it, but defense is defense, and he's clearly a solid defender. He plays defense when he has to. I do think that he does get a little winded around the end of games because he led the league in most starting points in the beginning of games. But I think he really needs to learn to start scoring, have his scoring come a lot more in the around the end of games to the middle towards the end, so that he really puts his footprints on it and really stomp the team out, so that he can be the reason that they close them off. Uh, but he's the best two guard in the league. So there's not much to really say for him at that point. Like he's still a phenomenal player. I think he holds this spot for a while, considering James Harden's gonna be where he is. I think James Harden's gonna stay too. I think Devin's gonna be the best two guard for a very long time. But he has to improve his ability to play make, his ability to lead. Because Chris Paul is not gonna be there forever. But yeah, I got Devin at 1, and I think he's gonna be at 1 for a while. And as far as he goes, as far as the sun goes, so uh, hopefully he takes care of the valley. All right, that's number 1, and that's the end of the list. I do have some honorable mentions though, so I'm gonna get through those, and then I'm gonna end the list. I'm gonna end the video. Excuse me. All right, for the honorable mentions, I have 3 of them. So I'm gonna get through these 3 really quick, and I'm gonna end the video. Um, At number 3, we got Jordan Poole, 18.6 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. Um, yeah, he was the as a six man, good stuff. Should have won most improved player, but he didn't. Um, Out of the 3 that I'm about to say, I definitely think he's the. I mean, I don't want to say worst, but 'cause I'm not ranking him necessarily, but I definitely think he's the worst. So that's why I'm saying him first. But he's still really good, and if he keeps it up, he could eventually be a two guard easily. But yeah, he could eventually be a starting two guard easily, of course. And he just got a bag like a couple days ago, so he's definitely gonna like, you know what I'm saying. Um, so he's I see a couple All Star games in his future. But yeah, Jordan Poole, honorable mention. All right, the next one. Okay. Um, even though I am a very like heavy Knicks fan. I'm not gonna say that he's the best technically. I think he has the best intangibles out of everyone, but he's not the best right now. Or the three that I'm saying, I think he is better than Jordan Poole though. 20 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Um, RJ Barrett started this year. That's why I don't have him one. That's the only reason why. RJ Barrett started this year. He was not a six man. The guy that I'm about to say next was. Um, but he averaged 20 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. His playmaking just needs to get better, and eventually, I see All Star games in his future, and like he's the future of the Knicks. Like what else is there to say? And eventually, he will be a top ten two guard. I don't care what no one says. All right. Number one honorable mention. Tyler Hero, 20.7 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists as a six man. That's why I put him ahead of RJ because he did this coming off the bench mostly, and he was not really one of the main. Even though he did average 20 points per game, the offense wasn't really set for him either. Like that's why like his potential is obviously through the roof. I do think in the long run RJ will be the better player. Bite me, Dre got sauce. But yeah, but right now I'll give the nod to Tyler Hero. So Tyler Hero is the number one honorable mention, and given how this year goes, he can easily sneak into the top 10. Two guards, depending on how they run him this season, depending on if he starts or not, depending on how he's focused on the offensive end. Um, but yeah, that's the video. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, share, anything y'all can comment. Everything's appreciated. Thank you. AU Biggs, aka Andrew. Um, TAS podcast channel. Make sure you check out my gaming channel at AU Big 16. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, anything. I'll have everything in the description for you to follow my socials. And the podcasts are definitely gonna be coming back. I'm trying to have at least one or two podcasts every week for you guys. Uh, but yeah, so thanks for tuning in and peace.